you say the seat for me?
Yes, you're right there.
Center. Oh, this is my... Okay.
You want to water this?
Yeah, I want water.
We have pretty good snacks, Senator. So
You have good snacks?
We do.
Thanks to your
We're
watering down the drink. We're really big on home.
We have to remind each other to drink water, though, because we all forget as the day goes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when...
Yeah, please.
have I told you the story about Deval Pantry?
About staying hydrated? Yes.
That's right. And it was such a touching moment, you know. Always fight from the heart, people can tell. And stay hydrated.
Two very important parts.
That's right. The heart of what it's all about. So, excuse me, we're headed to a town hall?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good. Are you all having fun?
Yes.
Did
We
you have
are
fun at the
super
market?
glad to not be in cold weather.
Yes.
I'll speak for the bus.
Yes.
This reminds me of home. I'm from McAllen.
Oh, yeah.
I'm born and raised in college in McAllen.
You
so
did.
this looks like McAllen.
So, I don't know, have you ever seen the picture? We use it in some of our video style. It shows up in some places. And it's a picture. I'm the little hot number in the sunglasses. Two brothers, the third brother's in uniform, and my mother were in this weird combination of clothes. That was taken in McAllen, Texas,
Wow.
when Don Reed was stationed in McAllen. So it's the first time we'd ever been all the way down to McAllen.
Was he doing border patrol? Or anything related to the border?
No.
Okay.
He was in the
Just
Air
down
Force.
Okay.
And I think it was training. But they were down there, I was a kid, 6 months, something like that, but we went down to see him. And so that was the first time I got to see McAllen and just how lush McAllen is compared to a place like Oklahoma, because Oklahoma's so much drier. And yeah, but I like McAllen. And then of course, I was back in McAllen to go to the center when they were locking up the children and separating from their parents. I remember one of the things about that trip.
We actually come from Nevada.
Hmm?
We came from Nevada.
We came from Nevada. That's exactly right. We were in Nevada, and it was, you may remember, it was when the first word was leaking out that this country was separating children from their families. And I went down to McAllen, to the big processing center down there. And that's the first time I saw the cages of women, cages of men, and these freestanding cages of little girls, little boys, the nursing mothers back in the corner. I said, when are these children have been separated from their families. And I remember the CBP agent said, oh no, these children are not separated from their families because they have other family members locked up somewhere in the facility. And I said, well, do they get to communicate with them or meet with them? And they said, no, we can't do that. So it makes me think about those numbers, about how many children were separated. And you know what happened every single time. We got more information, more children had been separated, more children had been lost somehow in the system and hadn't been able to be reunited with their families. But that was the first time I started thinking about how wrong those numbers probably are, because they were treating it as not separated if their record showed that a child and a family member were both somewhere in this giant facility, although they were locked up and separated from each other, and neither had knowledge about where the other was.
Senator, because of things like that, why do you think you haven't come out and just said that we should abolish ICE altogether? Just because that word, even if we reform it, it is associated with so much trauma with so many people and always will be.
No, it's a fair point. But it's also the point of, I think about our government agencies and really how a president has to take responsibility for what happens. And not an easy path of just saying, oh, I changed the name. It's that the president has to take ownership of what happens up and down the organization. That's where there's been a huge failure in the Trump administration, but a lot of backing off and hand waving for decades. It's interesting. I've been thinking a lot lately about the question of accountability. You know, obviously, sitting in the impeachment hearings gives me a chance. It gave me a chance to think about how do you hold a president accountable. But that's the most visible, but the really big one. It's how to make government accountable every single day. How to make sure that the things that a president said she cared about as a candidate are things she's working on every single day. And that president in turn is holding her own administration accountable. Our federal government's big, no doubt about it, it's huge. But it has such capacity to do good or to do harm. And that means it's a president's responsibility to stay after the people who are put in charge of those agencies and their immediate deputies, and make sure there are organized ways to get feedback on what's working and what's not working. Actually, I'll give you an example around this. I started doing the selfie lines, partly just because I didn't want anyone to leave an event wanting a picture and didn't get a picture because they couldn't crowd to the front of a rope line. You know, if you run a rope line that way, then people with disabilities can't get to the front, seniors can't get to the front, people with children.
You feel the same way about gaggles.
Yeah, exactly. Here you go. And but what I came to understand over time is the selfie line has kept me deeply rooted in what this campaign is about. It means I don't spend all my time talking to advisors in the media and people who are already on the team and who are experts. I spend my time with people who come through and say, this is what matters to me, or this is what I'm counting.
Has it been tough for you lately because you're not able to do them quite as much? You're not able to
It's
stay
hard. And it's hard because I feel like I disappoint people. People show up wanting to do selfie lines, and I want to do the selfie line, but it's the 24 hours in a day problem, and needing to get to a lot of places, and people have been very generous about it. But it's hard not to do that. To me, they are the heart and soul of a town hall. In the same way, I can't imagine filtering the questions in advance. I mean, I just can't imagine that. Anybody who wants to ask a question, we do it. And you notice I do it randomly. And there's a reason for that. It should not be the most aggressive person in the room. You notice a lot of times, or I don't know if you notice it, if you can see it from where you are. I'm kind of seeing it from the other end. But let's just say 10 tickets are drawn in the space of a town hall now. Some people are like, yes, I'm ready, I have it. And others are like, oh, that's fine. Do I really want to ask a question? Do I want to stand up in front of all these people? That's someone who never would have crowded to the front. But because they've got the ticket and the ticket was drawn, they make it to the front and they ask really important questions.
I just want to go back to, I just have two questions. Really.
Sure.
I just want to go back to, I overheard some of the Latinx voters that you were talking in Spanish say, I don't know who she is, I didn't know she was running for president, when they were behind us and they saw us with all the cameras. What do you think that means about her operation to reach out to Latinx voters who don't even really know who you are, especially in these communities? This is like one of the first times we've seen you come to one of these, like, very dominant
So we just have to be out there and keep doing more.
Do you think she should have come sooner? I mean,
I want to be everywhere all the time, but it's just not possible to do that. been to Nevada multiple times. I'm glad to come to Nevada. I want to come back. But I also want to be everywhere. It's hard to do that.
Do you think your operation is working well enough here? You haven't been here in 66 days.
I think our on-the-ground organizers are terrific. They include people who were born and raised here, dreamers, people who are in mixed status families, people who have never been part of a campaign before, but who believe in what I'm fighting for and want to be part of it. So I support everything they're doing. We also are putting more money into making sure we reach out through paid advertising and asking more surrogates to come to the state. But I'm under the same constraints every other candidate is, and that is it's a 24. There are only 24 hours in a day, and I don't know how to. We can't solve that.
So you gaggle way more than the other candidates.
No, I don't know that because I'm not with them.
You do. You do daily gaggles with us. We're always very appreciative. What do you think? Do you think that they should be gaggling more? Considering I've heard that Joe Biden sometimes only does a gaggle once a month. It's mostly Brookline or Bernie Sanders had gone 2 months without speaking to his school.
I think that talking to the press is one way that presidential candidates and presidents are held accountable. It's a big part of why we have a free press and the role it plays in our democracy. One of the reasons I've been so outspoken about Donald Trump's efforts to undermine a free press is that it truly undermines our democracy. It is the press that helps hold candidates and elected officials accountable between election days. It's the press that exposes the issues and forces candidates to face them head on. It can be uncomfortable sometimes, but it's the right thing to do. And yeah, I think everybody ought to be out and make themselves available to the press. Same kind of unfiltered questions. You guys don't. Could I get you to do filtered questions? Could I just say what you get to do?
Senator, your campaign sent out a fundraising email recently asking money from your supporters because you couldn't trust the press to cover your campaign fairly. Do you think that's kind of contradictory to what you just said?
No. I think it's about the recognition that there are media outlets who are not interested in giving a balanced coverage. And that means we have to use paid media and paid organizers in order to counter them.
Can you talk about your decision to not be here in Nevada on Saturday?
So I will be here. I'll be here in the morning. I'll be here when the caucuses begin. I'll be doing a rally to get out the vote. But remember, Washington is also starting to vote. We're getting voting in lots of places around the state, so I'm going to be here. But by nighttime, I'll be in Washington for a rally there because they're starting to vote.
And it is definitely a balance, but do you think those voters here in Nevada who already feel kind of slighted by Iowa and New Hampshire, do you think they'll be disappointed to not have a rally with you that night?
Look, I will be disappointed not to be with voters here, but I'm disappointed every time I don't get to get out and talk to people and shake hands and do selfie lines. It truly is a question of just trying to figure out how to manage the time.
Senator, you have spent a lot of time talking about the influence of money in politics and how powerful it can be, but at the same time, you've lately been saying, getting Donald Trump out of the White House is the number one thing. I think you've always said that, but particularly lately. And now a lot of people are saying, there's just been a lot of stories written about people saying that because of all of his money, Michael Bloomberg really is our best chance to beat Donald Trump. So you can just explain kind of the dichotomy there of trying to take on corruption, but also being in a time where some people are thinking we might need the influence of money to beat Trump.
I just disagree with the premise. I don't think we have a better chance of beating Donald Trump by putting up a billionaire against him. We have a better chance of beating Donald Trump when we pull our party together and when we fight for hardworking families, fight for core democratic principles that can unite our party and pull in independents and Republicans. Look, in a general election, there's going to be plenty of money for people to get their ads done. The fundamental question is going to be, what are the set of issues we run on and how hard we run from the heart? So I just think it's a...
Are those people talking about making a deal with the devil kind of?
I just think it's... I don't even think it's a deal with the devil. The deal with the devil implies that you're actually getting something. We're not better off putting up $1 billion. That does not increase the odds that we win here. We win when we pull our party together and when we fight from the heart for the values we believe in.
Senator, we've been following your campaign for a long time.
Yes, you have.
All of the ups and the downs. We've seen you come back from polling lower than at other times higher. I know you don't follow the polls, but what's something that you wish you'd done differently, you would have done differently, or something that you learned that you could tell yourself at the beginning of all of this? I mean, what have been some of the lowest points, some of the highest points?
Wow. Well, I need more time to think about this. I really do love doing this. And it's a hard question. I'm not trying to duck your question. I'm just saying, it's hard when I got a bad cold and, felt like I'd really rather stay in bed for a couple more hours and sleep instead of get out of bed and get in the car and drive somewhere. But every time I walk into a town hall, it's like a jolt. It's this enormous feeling of optimism that washes over me. It's this intense reminder that our country has so many problems, but we can fix it through democracy. That's who we are. And all these people show up to spend 2 or 3 hours because they wait in line and then they get in and then there's the music plays for a long time and then there's the pitch for field organization and somebody does an introduction and then there's another pause, and they've made this commitment to spend a whole evening because they care about our country, because they want to see us build a better nation. And I cannot think of a single time I walked into a town hall that I wasn't delighted to be there. And that's true. Little ones and big ones and giant ones and mega giant ones. It's true when the selfie lines have lots of people and only a few. I really do. It's actually, can I say it this way? Maybe these unite. Maybe this will make sense to you. I taught school for years, and I loved it. When I became a senator, I realized how much I missed it. I missed being in a room full of people who were asking hard questions and who were engaged, who cared about what was going to happen. And I used to have teaching dreams. I would dream at night about being back in the classroom after I'd gone to the Senate. And now, with town halls for a year, it's a chance to be back with people. It's a chance for people to wear on their sleeves night, nobody knows, right? Everyone was there and nobody knows. We had an overflow crowd and an overflow crowd to the overflow crowd. And they were all in the fight. And it felt good. It felt good because people recognize how important 2020 is. And that we've heard from 2 states, but we still got 98% of Americans left to go. And it looks like a lot of them still want to have a voice in what happens next.
Senator, the debate's coming up. There's a chance that Michael Bloomberg might be on the debate stage. We know that he's your favorite candidate to punch, possibly the only candidate you punch at. What can we expect to see on the debate stage if he makes it?
I've been pretty clear about this. I don't think billionaires ought to be able to buy their way onto the debate stage.
Is Tom Steyer going to pass on that? I mean, you don't.
No, he doesn't get a pass on that. I said it on the day that Kamala got forced out of the race. I thought it said something really terrible about our Democratic Party and our democracy. That on the very same day Kamala Harris announced that she would leave the race because of money, that a billionaire bought his way onto the debate stage. I just think that's wrong. And look, it's not a question of does Tom Steyer bring good ideas to the debate or Michael Bloomberg. We can talk about that. The point is, it changes fundamentally our democracy if someone can reach in their own pocket and fund $100 million in ads and suddenly push themselves up in the polls without having to meet a single voter, without having to take a single unfiltered question, without having to do press events. If we are in America, if we become an America, where you've either got to be a billionaire or suck up to the billionaires to get the Democratic nomination, then this democracy will work better and better for billionaires and worse for everyone else.
I feel like that's a strong fighting point for you. I mean, the past couple of days in Virginia particularly, and then here today, we've heard you kind of return to some of the rhetoric that got you really popular and big in the first place. Things like, I have a plan for that. I mean, you always say it, but you've been saying it a lot more recently.
I don't know. I hadn't really noticed that there was a
And
difference.
you've been hitting Michael Bloomberg again. I mean, we saw, his comments on redlining, and you talked on that in Arlington as well. Do you feel like those are strong points? Like, are those points that you think people connect with?
I think people do connect with them. The notion that Michael Bloomberg blames the 2008 financial crisis on restrictions on banks so they couldn't discriminate more against black and brown communities is truly outrageous. And anyone who thinks that should not be in our party.
Your campaign has been rearranging how they're spending their ad money, canceling ads in South Carolina and putting it elsewhere. Is that a sign that you guys are struggling with fundraising right now, or what does
No,
that mean?
they're just figuring out where they want to spend the money to reach people in the most effective ways. In fact, I think they're increasing overall ad buy.
But you have been emailing supporters asking them to help
Of
you have your
course.
7 million. That's kind of new. You haven't really had to do that before.
But that's what it's about. We've got 2 billionaires in this race, and what is it? 3 more people in the debate stage who immediately after New Hampshire headed off to suck up more money from millionaires and billionaires. Wall Street money is pouring into the Democratic primary. So yeah, I tell my supporters we're doing this grassroots, and we need everybody to see what we're up against. It's not that people haven't been helpful; they've been enormously helpful. We raised $6 million after Iowa. We asked people to set a $7 million goal going forward before Nevada. Raised $1 million on the first day. And I'm very, very grateful for that. We had a lot of new donors who jumped in. But it's important to be realistic about what it means that other candidates for the Democratic nomination are still out there bringing in more and more money from the billionaires.
Senator, there are 8 candidates still in the race. It's like the most
right?
amount of candidates that are, at least since the 1980s. There's so many. Do you think that this hurts Democrats' chances of beating Trump because there's just so many people for voters to choose between? Do you think it is will have a negative impact?
I don't know. I mean, I really don't. I get out and talk about my campaign. We don't have 8 people on the debate stage. But I really don't. I would give you an answer if I had one.
Do you think?
But I don't think of it in those terms. I can't control what 7 other people are doing. I can only control what I'm doing. So I actually don't spend a lot of time thinking about that.
And do you think your message kind of gets lost amongst all of the various messages?
You know, my job is to get out and fight the fight I believe in. And for me, it's never been about a bunch of consultants. I didn't need somebody to tell me what I believed because it polled well. I've known what I believed since long before I got into politics. My job is to get out and fight that fight. I think it's the right fight. I think it's the right fight for this moment. And I am deeply optimistic that we have this opportunity to put our country on a better path.
Senator, only recently Bernie Sanders.
What's that?
Only recently Bernie Sanders said that he denounced folks who are his supporters who've been criticizing culinary union workers or going after other folks who were maybe booing former presidential candidates. It took him this long to say, I don't want those people as part of my campaign.
Is that what he said? I didn't actually see the comment.
Those people don't speak for my campaign. What's your reaction to that? And do you think that that's enough?
I didn't see the comment, so it's hard for me to say whether I think that's enough because you've actually characterized 2 sort of different comments there. I feel really proud of the people who work on my campaign and the people who support us. We talked early on when we were first building this campaign that we were not going to fight with other campaigns and try to play dirty tricks on other campaigns and attack other campaigns online. And one of the consequences of that is that when other people dropped out of the race, they felt welcome in our campaign. They felt welcome to volunteer. They felt welcome to become part of the team. So that we have people now in our campaign who are, from Kirsten's campaign, from Kamala's, you know the list. I mean, it's a whole bunch of people. And this goes back to the question I was talking about earlier. I think that's how we build a stronger Democratic Party that will beat Donald Trump in November. We can't have a repeat of 2016 with Democrats firing at Democrats and Democrats still angry with Democrats. We need to be a Democratic Party that's ready, strong, and ready to go forward strong.
I have to just inform you.
Oh, okay.
I'll stop.
Okay.
I just didn't want you to be like, why are we rushing?
Okay, why are we rushing on?
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Okay, am I also going to give you a chance?
Yeah, you don't do that.
After that, okay.
Senator, can I fit one more in?
Sure.
Just on that question about Bernie, you've taken responsibility before when things far below you happened on your campaign, back in Nevada like a week ago, and you've apologized. Should you be doing that when
Look, I think that's what leadership is. Leadership is about taking responsibility for what's gone wrong and taking responsibility for making real change.
And this is a case where he should do that.
Look, I think this is about leaders. That's the kind of leader I am, and that's the kind of president I will be.
Senator, what do you think about the fact that he is your longtime friend and he's leading right now?
I'm sorry?
He's leading the nomination. Like, he won Iowa, he won New Hampshire.
Yeah. We've heard from 2 states, and nobody's running away with this race. No one has gotten above a quarter of the votes. It's still a very fluid situation. I think we're going to hear from more of the 98% of voters who still haven't had a chance to read it before this settles down. We good? We're always good. You guys are insatiable. You would always eat more.
Quick question, Senator. When you throw out your pinky, are you saying anything?
I'm sorry?
When you were throwing out your pinky to, I don't know, your pinky...
Pinky swear,
Are you-
pinky promise.
They're called pinky promises.
Okay.
I can tell you didn't do it.
This is my first trip.
Oh, okay. Those are pinky promises.
I'll know.
Yeah. What is it? What's the question you're asking?
No, what are you saying, or what are you
So
referring to?
most of the time,
I've heard of pinky
It's-
swears and...
no, most
But
of
I've
the
never
time
heard
it's my
anything.
name is Elizabeth. I'm running for president because that's what girls did. And then we pinky promise to remember.
Okay.
Sometimes a little girl will already have her own statement. And we do pinky promises to remember that. But that's what it's usually around. I want you to be the first president, and I will be the second. I've heard that from 6-year-olds. And I want you to be the first woman president, and I'll be the second. And we do pinky promises to remember. Yeah.
Can I ask you, I'm sorry.
Did a pinky promise today with a dog.
I
He was
didn't see
totally
that.
into it.
Oh, that was... We
That was
had
it.
already left the room.
Oh, okay.
During the brunch,
You
right?
missed it during the brunch.
Were there any stories that you heard at that last stop that really pulled at your heart? I know you had a moment with a few women behind the counter. Can you just maybe talk about one or two?
It's about what it means to live here in the U.S., to build a life here, work hard, to build a business, to employ people, and to know that you could be rounded up and forced out of this country in the middle of the night with no warning. That's hard on people. There's a lot of people who are afraid. Some are protected themselves, but big status families. It means that for so many people, it's even if they are citizens or hold a green card, they have a dad, a grandma, 2 younger brothers, a beloved uncle who are not. And they talk about what that means. To come home and call out, and for that split second not to know if your husband will still be there. The woman in the wheelchair said her husband's been here working, and as I documented, 35 years. And she said, I'm more afraid today than any time before in our lives. Please help us find a way. And scooping people up, terrorizing families, breaking families apart, that doesn't make our nation stronger. It makes our nation weaker. We have to do better than that, and we can.
Senator, you've said that you would consider a moratorium on deportations.
Yeah.
Would you do that, or is that it's just on the table?
No, it's what we need to do. I'm committed to, in the first 100 days, stop all deportations until we get a chance to review them again. And if these deportations that are on the table, the proposed ones, are not consistent with my policies, which means we don't scoop up family members, people who pose no threat, people who are part of our communities, then they're not deported. They won't be deported. And I want to put a complete halt until we can get that completely sorted through.
Senator, a very wonky follow-up. There used to be a policy, or kind of still is, called mano dura. Jeff Sessions was a really big proponent of that, in that criminals from these countries who are trying to come into the U.S. were then deported back. But those countries, like El Salvador, for example, their criminal justice systems don't keep those people. That's led to gang violence and things like that. I know you've talked about supporting these countries economically, but how do you dig deeper and help kind of mitigate crime?
Well, when I talk about supporting them economically, it's also about supporting them so they actually have rule of law, so they have the capacity to have a criminal justice system that actually functions. So it's not just about how you can get more stores, and okay, we'll talk about this later, I promise, but it is about more. It's not just about more stores. It's about a justice system that functions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.